So it's the first day of your peer review, and your peer reviewer looks at you and says, "Where's your independence documentation?" And you say to her, "Well, I did sign off on a checklist item that said I considered independence," and she says, "Sorry, no go. We have to document our independence, and we have to do so in a fashion that proves that we are in fact independent." And this has been a hot button issue in peer reviews for many years now. The thing I'd like to talk to you about in this video is the issue of performing non-attest services as you also perform attest services. So let's consider a typical example. You're doing an audit, and obviously an audit is an attest service, but you're also performing depreciation schedule assistance, and you're also preparing the financial statements. Not unusual. As you perform these two non-attest services, the preparation of the financial statements and the assistance with the depreciation schedule, you have to document, yes, I did perform those two non-attest services. I did perform the audit, the attest service, but I'm still independent. And you really want to work through and document why you are independent. Now, why is it that the AICPA considers this so important? And it is important. The main piece to this is the AICPA does not want the auditor, in this example, to perform management services. And that's the main thing to consider here. So if you were preparing financial statements and the client had no one with sufficient skill, knowledge, and experience to review those financial statements and assume responsibility, then you would not be independent, and you really could not even issue the audit report because you lack independence. As you prepare your engagement letter, you should be thinking about what non-attest services will I provide, and does the client have a person that can be designated to oversee the non-attest services that I perform and assume responsibility for those services. In the engagement letter, it's a good idea to even name that person that's designated to oversee the non-attest services that you perform. There should also be additional language in the engagement letter saying that a person with sufficient skill, knowledge, and experience will be assigned to oversee the non-attest services that you as the auditor perform. So let's go back for a moment and talk about anytime you do non-attest and you do a test, you need to document why the non-attest does not impair your independence. Normally this is done on a form, and in the form you are listing preparation of financial statements, depreciation assistance. If you're doing the tax return, you would list that. If you're doing other non-attest services, you would list those as well. You want to look at each one of those non-attest services and consider individually, do any of these individually impair my independence? Then you want to look at those in the aggregate or all together and consider, if I'm doing all of these, does it look like I'm really starting to become management? And you can step over the line in terms of independence by performing too many non-attest services So you want to look at those all together and make sure there's not an impairment. Now, what does the documentation for the skill, knowledge, and experience look like? It's mainly just saying about that person, what is their educational background, how long have they worked in that position, do they have any professional certifications. When you look at all of these factors, does this person have sufficient skill, knowledge, and experience to actually assume responsibility for those services, such as the tax return, such as preparation of the financial statement, such as the depreciation schedule, such as bookkeeping. So that, in a nutshell, is how you would document and consider non-attest services when you're performing attest services. And I'll close by saying this. There are other attest services in addition to audits, and those would primarily be review engagements, compilations, and agreed upon procedures. And some people don't really know that compilations are in fact an attest service. They are a non-assurance service, but they are an attest service. Now, why would a compilation be an attest service? Because you have to consider independence. So any service that you provide where you have to consider independence is considered an attest service. So whether you're doing an audit, a review, a compilation, agreed upon procedures, and there are some other attest services, when you do those and you perform non-attest services, then make sure you document how the non-attest services do not impair your independence with regard to the attest service. So I hope that helps. Take care and bye now.